There's this silence about Christopher's whereabouts. There's never silence when Christopher is around. It's about 2 in the morning. We turned on the TV, and it said 6 bodies were found in a Surrey apartment.
Police aren't releasing many details on what they've found so far.
At first glance, this does not look like it's just some random act.
Eileen returned to the apartment building and begged the detective on duty to tell her if her son was lying upstairs among the dead.
He said to me, "Does he have any tattoos?" I looked at him and I said, "No. My son does not have one tattoo in his body." I looked at him and I said, "You know what? Christopher has a mole on his face, like I do. He also has a mole right here, like I do."
Since police refused to confirm her worst fears, Eileen continued her vigil through 2 long nights.
October 21st, Sunday, we switch on the news again. They said they're taking out the bodies. In my heart, I just knew I'd never see my son again alive. It just the silence of it all.
As he left the family's apartment on the way to his regular Friday night basketball game, Chris Mahan had been literally dragged into the death scene across the hall. One of 2 victims who had nothing to do with the drug trade, killed to ensure their silence.
And we're like, wow, 2 innocent people have just been killed. That changed the story and the way the media covered the story. It was no longer a situation where people involved are getting killed, it's bad, uses up police resources, but gee, most of us are fine. Suddenly it was like, wow, anybody can get killed in this deadly conflict, and that is scary.
All the more unnerving, the feeling of chaos. The public didn't know who to fear, who to avoid.
It was a war between the UN gang and the Bacon group, and one side had to win, and a lot of people lost.
Six months after the Surrey 6 bloodbath, another innocent was murdered. A young man who was installing a sound system in Jamie Bacon's car was apparently mistaken for Jamie. It was the day after a UN gangster had been shot to death in Abbotsford, both frighteningly public executions. The UN funeral would be Clay Rouche's last public appearance as a free man. A cross-border police investigation aimed at disrupting drug smuggling by air fingered Rouche for drug trafficking and money laundering. The UN leader was arrested in Texas en route home from Mexico. He was sentenced to 30 years. But taking out one general wouldn't stop the war.
Our judges give them priority against us. They have more rights than we do.
Thank you.
And nothing would stop Eileen Mahan from chasing the truth about her son's death.
The media, while they took this story up in a big way, did what the media does, which is forget within 2 or 3 weeks.
Eileen kept pushing for answers, and Kim Boland took up the challenge. She worked her police contacts until she could finally report a shape to the violent chaos. Kim's story publicly linked Jamie Bacon's Red Scorpions to the Surrey 6 massacre.
That same day, police issued this extraordinary warning that everyone should stay away from these Abbotsford brothers, Jonathan, Jared, and James Bacon, because they were the target of assassination plots, and that if anybody was near them, they could very well find, themselves killed in the crossfire.
The community was now on high alert, and the Bacon brothers on everybody's mind. How did peaceful Abbotsford become ground zero in the gang wars? Ron Sweeney is a retired teacher born and raised in Abbotsford.
We have seen our city grow from a little village or a little country hick town into a bedroom community, I guess, of Vancouver.
Ron Sweeney also watched Jamie Bacon transform from a clean-cut kid into a gangster. Sweeney was Jamie's wrestling coach in high school and even rates a special "Thank you, Mr. S" in the 2003 high school yearbook. In grade 10, Jamie, wrestling here in red, was a scrawny kid with a few good moves. By grade 12, he was a 110-kilo monster with a few good moves.
I think he rested on his laurels, so meaning that he knew at the beginning of this year that he was probably the toughest guy in his weight class. And he was only worried about winning a match with the least amount of effort.
And then there was Jamie's hot car. He said he got the money for his Lincoln by picking berries in the summer. As Jamie's extracurricular activities began to raise suspicion, the school finally tried to intervene.
The vice principal had a heart-to-heart with Jamie and just said, "Jamie, you still have a chance to change your ways. You still have a chance, whatever you're doing, to get out of it and start a new life. If you don't, you will become a statistic."
Also on staff one year at Yale Secondary, Jamie's father, David Bacon. He was a teacher's aide working with special needs kids.
Mr. Bacon, he was given all the toughest kids. Kids that had aggressive tendencies, kids that would act out, and did a great job.
Even so, David Bacon was banned from ringside for his intense and aggressive manner. For Ron Sweeney, it all added up to the most delinquent wave of kids he'd seen in 34 years of teaching.
That 2003 group, there was never another Yale graduating class that had that many, I was going to say bad kids, but they weren't bad kids. They were at-risk kids. They were kids that were willing to go to war for their friends at any cost. Cost of an education, cost of a criminal record. They were going to go to war at any cost.
There was a kind of social contagion spreading through the valley, incubated in a climate of easygoing attitudes to drugs, easy money to be made, and the community's willful ignorance. For many years, politicians and even police had sometimes turned a blind eye, at least in Abbotsford.
I specifically remember when we had this little gang problem, the chief of the day and an inspector sitting down in the inspector's office with a dictionary to find out exactly what the definition of a gang was so that they could say that there wasn't a gang problem in Abbotsford.
Meanwhile, the contagion spread through the most unlikely neighborhoods.
We're a typical family of 5. My husband works full-time. I was a stay-at-home mom, and from there, I developed my own work. I'm a writer and a personal historian. My daughter was born in the wake of a family death, so she was very special. She was sweet, she was thoughtful, she was Daddy's girl, she was his princess. She was a good student, bright, really bright. And I would sometimes say it to my friends, she's too good to be true. Something's gonna happen someday.
And at age 20, Susan's perfect daughter moved in with a red scorpion. The family gathered frightening facts. Their little girl drove for the boyfriend, was even stopped by police with drugs and wads of cash in the car.
He didn't leave the house without a bulletproof vest. And I asked her directly, do you get to wear one too? And she said no, and I said, why not? And she said, that's it, the conversation's over.